Boris Johnson announced his resignation as British Prime Minister today after he was abandoned by ministers and his Conservative Party's lawmakers. They say that he's no longer fit to govern. Well, following months of scandals and policy U-turns, all but a handful of allies remained in their posts in Johnson's government this week. Johnson even lost the support of Finance Minister Nadim Zahawi, who he appointed to the post only on Tuesday. Johnson said he would remain as Prime Minister while the Conservatives elect a new leader. However, most of his own lawmakers have called for him to step down immediately while an interim leader takes charge. All right, let's discuss. We're joined by Dr. Alex Vines, Director for Africa Program at Chatham House. Thank you for being with us, Doctor. Someone said in the end, Boris Johnson was like the Titanic trying to resist the iceberg. He wanted to stay, but his party made it impossible, didn't they?
Well, the leader of the opposition described it as the ships deserting the rats. So it depends how you want to look at it. But it was a really dramatic couple of days. I mean, who would have imagined just under 55 ministers and aides all resigned? I mean, Boris Johnson found it really difficult to fill positions. He just doesn't have enough people who will step into the vacancies. So it's a sense of relief, I think, here in London that the Prime Minister finally announced that he had resigned, although we'll have to wait and see now how long he remains in his position. As you said, the indication in his speech is that he'll stay until another leader is elected by the party of government, the Conservatives. Theoretically, that could be as long as October, when the party congress is taking place, but there is a lot of pressure that it will be fast-streamed.
Yeah, because of that undefined timeline and so many people saying he should resign immediately, do you think if he doesn't, there will be instability until a new leader is elected?
Well, I mean, there's real problems at filling the positions in government at the moment. A lot of the committees in Parliament are not functioning because they just are not the, they are not the junior ministers and the aides to fill them. And so the machinery of government has stalled, basically. And that's a really problematic situation, given the headwinds of high inflation, the war in Ukraine, and many other things that this government is having to focus on.
This was about the Prime Minister seemingly lying when he said he didn't know about a complaint against a member of his government. On its own, was that a big enough scandal, or is it because there's just been scandal after scandal, a history of lies and mistruths, and then it becomes the straw that broke the camel's back?
It's a break of trust. I mean, the majority of parliamentarians, I think, moved because of the by-election results that we've had recently that were large majorities for the Conservative Party, the party of government, overturned, won by Labour, the main opposition party, but the Liberal Democrats also. And so members of Parliament, at the end of the day, are worried about their futures. And so that was a really mind-focusing moment for them. But there's also a broken link of trust with the broader electorate now. It's the Partygate scandal that during COVID, in the lockdown, Boris Johnson and his colleagues in the number 10 Downing Street, the Prime Minister of Office, were having parties. And it's a number of lies that have come out, including the one particularly about Mr. Pincher and the sexual issues that have been alleged.
Yeah, so they jumped on the latest misdemeanor because there's an overall problem and they're seeing that in the numbers.
There is. I mean, look, there was a cartoon in one of the British newspapers a little while back of aliens landing in London and saying, "Take me to your liar." I mean, that tells you a lot.
Yeah. The ministers that resigned in their droves, so then you can't really say they were doing it for the good of the people, or just because the writing was on the wall. And like you say, they have to now measure where they should position themselves and worry about their own futures.
Yeah, look, you're well experienced of political turbulence in South Africa, so there's nothing that South Africans that wouldn't see familiar in what's been occurring in the United Kingdom just now in its democracy. So, this is the rough and tumble of democracy. The institutions in the end didn't work, the politics did work. It reminds me a bit of the inquiries on the former President Zuma and what happened in South Africa. Institutions do work; they do take their time. They're messy, but the Nkandla scandal, has a kind of echo to what we've been seeing here in the United Kingdom, I would have said.
However, some would say, certainly in this country, we don't see ministers resigning often. I'm interested to know how many of those UK ministers do you think will return to politics? Some making the analogy that unlike ministers in South Africa or in many African countries, they can easily get business jobs. Does that make a difference in UK politics? And of course, it's the electoral system as well.
Well, Mr. Johnson himself, after being Prime Minister, will make several million pounds at least every year out of being on the talk circuit. So he's not going to be poor. I mean, he's been grumbling about his salary, but he's got a future in terms of doing entertaining dinner speeches, for example. So in terms of ministers, there are jobs. I mean, the UK economy, although it's really underperforming now and because of the strong headwinds, I would argue because of Brexit, but also because of inflation and also disruption to the global economy because of the way that China has been closing itself down because of the response to COVID. I mean, there is record employment in the United Kingdom. There are plenty of jobs at the moment. The issue is that the jobs aren't paying the sorts of salaries to keep up with inflation. So, this is just like in South Africa, a massive issue.
Yeah.
I do think one question that we need to ask, especially for a South African audience, is what post Johnson, what will be the United Kingdom's relationship, including with South Africa, but with the African continent, because he was interested in the continent. The first ever UK-Africa Investment Summit in early 2020 was opened by him, and he was planning a second one at the beginning of next year.
Yeah, pity. And let's chat when the new Prime Minister is elected. Thank you very much, Dr. Alex Vines, Africa Chatham House Director.